Hi there, welcome to Thursdays on the Stoop. I'm Julian Schendelman, one of our two co-directors. Today we have Dreamwork for Writers with Ravneet Sandhu. Ravneet currently lives outside of Philadelphia with her husband. Her short stories have been published in The Offing, Roots Quarterly, Gordon Square Review, and The Rectangle. So glad you're here. Ravneet, take it away.
All right, thank you everyone for being here today on this Thursday to talk about dreams. So there's a bit of a lag, so sometimes I swear it's planned. I do the button and it doesn't work, but it's okay. Anyways, so we have about 20 people here. If you want to introduce yourself in the chat, please feel free. My name is Ravneet, she, her pronouns, wow. Location lives outside of Philadelphia, just like in one of the suburbs. I write short fiction. I've been working on novels since I was like in 12th grade. They are yet to materialize, but it's okay. Um, well, I plan to tell people about dreams today and hopefully help them use dreams in their writing. But I'm super interested to see what attracted people to this workshop. This is also the place where I'm leaving my Instagram, just in case you ever want to contact me or talk to me about dreams. It's there. You can message me. It's not super active, but that doesn't mean I don't check it. Um, yeah. And if you want to introduce yourself on camera, you can do so too. It is recorded, but feel free. I'll just give us a couple of minutes here. We're able to write stuff in the chat. Oh, hi, Terry. Colorado. West Coast of Canada. Wow. DC. Fun fact. I actually work in DC, but I work from home. So Houston, Texas. Philly. Thinking about writing a gothic horror. Okay. Thank you. Feel free to keep putting stuff in the chat. All right. So we want to talk about dreams today. It doesn't work if you don't remember your dreams. So how do you remember your dreams? One of the best ways to actually set an intention to record your dreams, so you have to tell yourself before you're falling asleep that I'm going to wake up and I'm going to think about this dream. I'm going to have a dream tonight and I'm going to wake up and think about this dream. You wake up in the morning and then the first thing you have to do, don't, maybe you have an alarm, probably have a job to go to. So I suggest waking up just a little bit early so you have time to do this. You wake up and you ask yourself, what did I dream about? What was it? You might sometimes people have this like fleeting image in a bunch of these fleeting images in their head when they wake up in the morning. Um, Hold on to those, and write them down. So keep a journal next to you. So this can be a physical journal that you write your dreams in. This can be your phone that you do voice recordings in, and then you transcribe it later. Um, Sometimes that helps because if you close your eyes and try to remember, and you can transcribe and you can voice record. Um, you can also make a video because anyone can make a video now, and then look back at all your dreams. But I would recommend if you use any video or audio to actually write them out because we're all writers. It does help to write these out because then you'll remember more. Um, the other way to do this, if you're like one of those people who say, I never remember my dreams, I just something happens, I wake up and I know something happened, but I just don't remember it. Couple of ways to get by this. One is either you wake up like half an hour early than your usual wake up time. So this will make you groggy throughout the day. So don't do this like when you have an important meeting or something important going on during the day. But if it's going to be like the weekend, I think it's fine. The other way to do this is before you go to sleep. Try to keep yourself awake or put in half an hour sort of alarm on and wake yourself up. So the point is to sort of interrupt your REM cycle, which is when you'll probably be dreaming. And then again, try to hold on to those images, try to hold on to those plots, the symbols, the structures, um, and write it down. So one way to do this is on one page, you write down your entire dream, and the page next to it, you write out all the associations. So, feel free to make illustrations and dream maps. Sometimes you'll visit places, sometimes you'll just be like, oh, it was a dream of a house and it had these levels, and this was happening on level 1 and level 2 and level 3, and just sometimes it's helpful to have a map. Or I would say, like, don't use the internet at this point. You don't want to sort of I'm trying to keep you here within your dreams and not trying to take you outside of your dreams. And the more like outside media you introduce at this point can sort of sully your dreams because you're trying to, part of looking at your dreams is understanding what yourself is trying to tell about yourself, right? So I should have said this before, but this is more of the Jungian philosophy. I was a psychology major. I got my master's in psychology. I don't do counseling, I do research. But I think part of it's interesting to understand like, which psychological perspective I'm using, and this is the Jungian perspective, which the idea is like your dreams are to discover your true self. So and the true self, your dreams, it's just part of your unconscious. They're just telling you what your true self is. Really, it's just more about self-development. I'm not really looking at dreams as prophecies or dreams as like all of your emotional traumas. There's not the Freudian perspective, or even the rational perspective, but it's more of like these are dreams that are just a part of me. So that's why we're trying not to add more media at this stage. The fourth thing, and this is the idea behind developing your own dream library, is like once you have a dream journal and you try to be faithful to it and you try doing your intentions and recording your dreams and waking up and just giving yourself the time to sit in your sort of dreamscape, um, you'll end up having like a personal record of your dreams, and you can try to figure out what symbols you see across dreams. We'll talk just a bit more about symbols at the later half of this hour, but just wanted to put it out there. Um, this sort of doesn't work if you drink, uh, so or you do any sort of like something that would induce a different or reality or something like it just sort of doesn't work. This is more of obviously don't do if you exercise too much, you'll probably not remember your dreams. Um, oh yeah, and if you're the one thing you need to remember about dealing with your unconscious is that your unconscious can be unkind to you, and it often is. It can often just like make fun of you, right? So sometimes you're just dreaming about anxieties. You're just having nightmares. You're waking up and it's just a nightmare. Which is, by the way, the technical definition of a nightmare is like a dream you wake up from. People didn't know that. Always thought that was interesting. But you also just there's like a dark, shadowy thing in your dreams, and we just wake up scared. Um, don't I won't even record those dreams really, unless your nightmares are something you're super interested in. It's hard to turn those dreams into stories. That's the other thing, because the point of this is like, how do you make your dreams show up in your stories, right? Um, and it's just I would be kind to your own self and just not go down that road. So that's just my warning. Once you start recording your dreams, you might remember other parts of the dream. And you might get that moment. You might have to ask yourself, was this real? Was this something that actually happened in the dream? Don't worry about it. Just write it all down. Um, once you start and then you start looking at what thoughts, feelings, ideas, memories, and reactions sort of occur to me when I look at this dream, because you want to keep looking back at the dream image again. Like I said, don't think too much about adding external media at this point. Just sort of, especially when you're first started recording your dreams, just sort of record your dreams, at least have like a week's worth of this personal library. I think that is more beneficial because then you start seeing symbols across dreams and you start seeing plots across dreams. You don't only want to write about your associations because you can just sit there and associate again. So when you're waking up in the morning, you just don't just write about what you think it is, just write what it is. because we'll write more about what we think it is later. You're still sort of waking up, make use of that time, make use of that state of consciousness. Don't interfere, don't censor, don't self-select. Don't also add morality. You might have dreams where people are doing horrible things, or people who you yourself are doing horrible things, or things you would just never imagine doing in real life. It's okay. A part of like the dreams that show up, it's like the shadow archetype in Jungian psychology, but it could be like something that you have repressed, something that you hate. Part of the idea behind it is like things you hate in other people are also things you might have felt or understood and hate in yourself. So it can be um, very emotionally taxing too. So don't interfere, don't censor, just write it all down, and we can make sense of it later. So the way I sort of use this is I when I'm working on a short story or like some sort and I'm stuck with a plot point, I actually spend most of the night. I know when it's a good night. I know when like not a lot of stuff hasn't happened that day. I'm not very emotionally charged, no alcohol, nothing of that sort. And I don't have anything crazy the next morning. I sit there while I stay in bed and I just think about what's actually happening in my story. I go like step by step by step, until I feel like my unconscious sort of takes over and I just see a bunch of images that complete the story for me or show me a direction of the story I wasn't seeing before. But that's how I use it. That's not really a dream. That's more like that slightly different stage of consciousness, but it works for me. And it worked only after I recorded my dreams. I looked at my dreams over years, and it's very interesting once you do it. I would say like don't do it forever. I do it when you feel like you want to do this. And I have dreams from my college that I look at, and those are very interesting because it's nothing. I don't have similar dreams anymore. I have wildly different dreams. So you'll see that too. Like once you go through one step of your stage of your life to the other, you'll start having different dreams. Certain people also have dreams that keep happening again and again and again. Again, it's up to you. You can start recording those too and see like how those change throughout the years. Um, so the other thing I want to say is once you start looking at how do you interpret this dream is like there is no real correct way, and you should trust yourself because there's yourself that's showing you this dream. I'll give you some techniques about how you can try to interpret it, but it's what feels good to you. So sometimes you can see like plots in dreams, and you might see some sort of exposition happening. And again, this can help you figure out what's happening in the dream when you're trying to record it. It's like what's happening, where it sets place, the time of the action, all the people involved, what the plot development is, what's going on. Some sort of definite tension is happening. Again, this is like these are more involved dreams, right? Once you start remembering these more involved dreams, this isn't going to be your I wake up, I have an exam the next day, and I forgot all my knowledge. I forgot all my lessons and everything, and I'm just sitting there trying to give an exam I didn't study for. Those are which are very common, which is a very common anxiety dream to have. This is more like when you have start having like sort of plot rich dreams, and you just don't know what to do with those. And you see like something decisive sort of happens, and something sort of changes, and then there's like a conclusion at the end. So sometimes it can be super helpful to look at your dream in this way. Like it is a story, and if you, especially if you want to use it as a story later on, it can be helpful to structure it this way once you write it down. Some of the more basic sort of dream plots, we have the hero's journey. The hero is gender neutral here. You have the miraculous birth and childhood of the hero, in which their special powers are detected, tried, and tested. Your rather typical hero's journey here, and then there's sort of like a adversary that they need to defeat. You sometimes have these rags to riches stories too, in which the hero triumphs over adversity and wins the kingdom. Then we sometimes have marriage plots. This is more than your like average sex dream, I would say. where boy meets girls, or however this is. Again, this is like old language I've taken from a 1950s textbook. So however love looks like to you. And they sort of live happily ever after. You might have some meet cute going on. And then the fourth type of basic plot you might see is like the struggle between light and darkness, good and evil, life and death. And these tend to be more abstract. These are like an elevated hero's journey. Like the hero's journey can sometimes be the first one I talked about can be very simple in a way. And this can be more like there's something crazy you need to defeat, but then you need to realize like you see a part of yourself in them. A lot of stories sort of follow these plots, and you'll find them in your dreams too once you start writing them out. You might also see the opposite, which is like riches to rags, right? Loss and failure, like evil triumphs over good, boy loses girl, or girl loses girl, or however that is, and the dragon wins. So the dragon here is like the big thing that you're trying to defeat. You might have those happen too. Again, these are like interesting ways to think about your dreams and see like how it relates to these sort of basic dream plots. Because you can obviously take these and use them in a short story or some fiction or even a poem. So I think it's worth having this in your back pocket when you think about dreams. And then, okay, yeah, common dreams. So fixed acts, that's what they're called, like motor sequences that are necessary for survival and reproduction. So defensive behavior, like you might have a lot of like physical combat, and this just the whole dream is just a fight. Erotic dreams, feeding. So you're literally just eating in this dream. And sometimes it's a bunch of, oh, I should have said this. Sometimes it's a bunch of dreams together. I often get like a very plot rich dream and then something very simple like feeding or fighting. And then another plot rich dream. And then sometimes it's just a bunch of symbols and that don't really lean towards a plot, but it's okay. So you might have all different sorts of dreams. This is just to help you understand which one, how you want to classify them. And then fleeing, like you're running away from something, fornication. The part of the reason why people think, the reason why psychologists, sorry, think you have these sort of fixed act dreams is because it's evolutionary, right? We were probably doing this in cave times, and this is sort of just stuck with us over the years. You might also have role playing in your dream. So, for an example, you're sitting in a car and you're driving the car, and there's someone next to you who's just sitting and criticizing. You may not even see their face, but you can just hear them criticize you throughout. And that could actually just be a part of yourself, right? So you're just role playing different parts of yourself in this dream. Oh, another thing to think about is sometimes you might dream of people in your real life and you realize, oh, these people, that's like, but that's different. Like real life and dream life, I don't know, mom is different, right? And that could happen. That doesn't mean that you have those like feelings towards your mom. It's more about your relationship. Um, again, think about it as like mirrored back to you, but it's weird, you know, and it just served a purpose in the dream. You don't have to think like, I don't know, you have a dream about your husband trying to kill you. He's probably not trying to kill you. It was just a dream. It's probably a fear. It's probably an anxiety. But if you want to turn that into a story, you can take elements of what happened in the dream. Once you remember what they are, hopefully you remember what they are because you recorded your dream. Um, and then you take it and then you can put it in a story. And then some common childhood dreams are like fear of the dark, fear of strangers, and the rapidly approaching events, like I talked about, like having an exam the next day and dreaming about like not knowing anything. That's a very common childhood dream kids have. And it's just a way of yourself trying to protect yourself, trying to prepare yourself in a way, your unconscious self, preparing your more conscious self. Or warning signs like, oh, there's just I'm just in a jungle and this lion is out to get me, and that's the entire dream. And just, this is like a common again sort of childhood early warning sign sort of dream. Um, oh, the serpent archetype. So, which is like this is sort of more Jungian, but the idea is that you have a battle with a monster, and it's funny because it's like when you have these dreams, you realize you're literally looking at parts of yourself, and the monster is also the monster within you. And you'll see this happen like with Dracula or with other sort of these monsters that have been created throughout generations. And it could be in religion, it could be in mythology, it could be in all these different things. Usually find the conquest of the dragon. That's a very interesting story to humans, and that shows up in our um, more conscious stories, like the stories people write, fairy tales. It also shows up in your dreams. So you might just have that sort of big dream too. Again, just because you see these themes doesn't really mean that you can't put them in a story. You can. I just want to tell you what they're probably signifying. So it helps having this knowledge so you're not scared of your dreams, right? You're not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm so weird. No, these are very common, much more common than you think. So I thought we'll take like a 10-minute break and people could sort of try to do this on their own. So it helps to have, I think most people probably game here because they're interested in dreams, right? So if you have like a very significant dream, or you might just want to write this down about for the next time you have a dream which feels significant. When you wake up in the morning, you're like, that felt very significant. I want you to think about these things. I want you to think about the place where it's taking place, the situation, the buildings around you, the environment around you. Is it natural? Is it concrete? The main characters. So you can be the main character. People around you are the main character. You can also feel like it was me, but it was not me. It was a different version of me. And that's okay. And then you just write out what that different version was and how they thought about and their belief system. Because usually you're feeling these things in your dreams too. You can like I said, like you're having a dream about your mother, but you realize, oh, that's actually not how my mother would behave at all. That's a slightly different mother, right? You just write about the mother in the dream. Don't worry about your mom in real life. Their history, if you have some history with them, because you sometimes like start feeling histories and attitudes like show up during your dream. Sometimes it's part of the exposition, sometimes it's part of the climax as well. Um, those can be super important because well, in the Jungian sort of way, they can show you what you are, your different belief systems that are inside of you that you perhaps think about but don't think about consciously that much, or that you sort of struggle with. You can see that happening. It's interesting because it's interesting to you because it happened in your dream. So that's why it's probably interesting for you to write about as well. Um, a part of this is like confronting all parts of you. I think it makes it that's like my mission behind why I do all this dream work is because I think it makes me a better writer because a part of writing for me feels sort of rather unconscious. The more I try to understand my unconscious, the better I feel like I've become as a writer. The other thing could be looking at everyone's behavior and sort of what constitutes as a plot action. Animals, sort of symbolic representations can be interesting. We'll talk just a little bit more about symbols after this activity. So you can have like symbolic objects there too, like rings and sword, pottery. And this is sort of thinking again, like if you want to think about an important dream that you have this like list of um, things you want to think about, can be super helpful. So if you want to screenshot this, this is the time. Emotions, your emotions, the general mood, the general atmosphere. It could be you're in a different period of history. I should get those sort of dreams too. And so even if you're, say you're just like stuck there and there are a bunch of numbers or colors or geometric patterns, these are all things worth noting. And again, like I said, the more you record your dreams, the more you'll see these symbols across. All of your dreams, and it helps to sort of build this personal library. It's also easier for you to use these symbols and these belief systems and this plot points in your work. Okay, so I think we'll take about 10 minutes. We're at 4:28. Um, we'll do till 4:38. I think you need to sort of open yourself up to this, but I think this can be fun. So I'll put a timer on if people want to do this. And you can ask questions in the chat. All right, just a 2-minute warning for folks. All right. If people would like to come back, I won't press on anyone to share because dreams are actually incredibly personal. But if you would like to share in the chat, please feel free. From what I understand, like the chat also isn't recorded and doesn't go on YouTube, so it can be helpful. All right, we have someone. But yeah, it's not. Okay. So you're hearing me talk about symbols a lot. Why? Because I read Man and His Symbols by Carl Jung. Carl Jung was a Swiss psychiatrist who lived through both world wars. He was a psychoanalyst. He broke up with Freud. And so if you actually are interested in looking at dreams through the Freudian perspective, that would be different than this perspective. Just wanted to give a shout out. His biggest thing was that he believed in like the collective unconsciousness, which is he said we have a conscious self, we have an unconscious self. Part of the unconscious self is we have all these archetypes that we see across time and cultures, and how these archetypes mean something important to most people. Uh, hard to explain. It's a big concept, but I'm gonna try. So the first thing we start with is signs. So language is a sign. It only sort of denotes the object to which it is attached. And symbols is like a step further. These are names, even pictures that are familiar to us in daily life that denote more than their obvious meaning. So the idea is like to have like an unconscious aspect to it. Aspect to it is that is never precisely defined or explained. So for example, like I don't know, I have like this Trader Joe's cookies thing in front of me, I'm looking at a cookie. I think it's a cookie. It's just a sign. It's just there's nothing more outside of it. But symbols they're often used like religion and mythology, folklore are big spaces where they're used. So for someone raised in a country where Christianity is like a dominant, um, I shouldn't say dominant, is a majority religion, you might see the cross and have a lot of might see the cross as a symbol. Say for another country, that could be um, the uh, well, it could just be different for different countries. I think it depends on where you grew up. I didn't grow up in the US, so when I came here, and then that's when the cross started becoming a symbol. Um, but it can also lead to ideas that are out of reason. So this is when I say out of reason, when I say rational, I'm just talking about the idea that everything is a cause and effect. And when you talk about more sort of abstract things, like belief systems, even some certain parts of philosophy, you'll realize like this just feels out of reason because you can't prove it, and that's the other thing with the unconscious is that you can't really prove anything about the unconscious. It's hard to prove. So all of these are just like efforts by people to try to understand the unconsciousness, but we can never really prove one way or the other what works and what doesn't, what is part of the unconscious and what is not. The bigger symbols, and one way we see a lot of symbols is through our dreams. And then the way Carl Jung started thinking about archetypes was that he was seeing dreams, and seeing things happen in dreams that he felt like he couldn't explain through his own individual living. Like he had never seen any of this stuff happen. He couldn't see it culturally either. And that's when he realized that it was bigger than his own personal experience. And these were, as he termed them, archetypes. They were often without sort of known region, and they can sort of be reproduced across history. So one good example is like your shadow self. That's a pretty good example. That's easy to get. That's so your shadow self is something that's everything that you are not, in a way, everything that was repressed by you has been repressed since you were a child. So this goes to all your ideas of what is moral, what is correct, and it goes to a lot of cultural conditioning, a lot of gendered conditioning as well, that you'll see and you sort of receive growing up. And it can be about love, it can be about other things, it can be your ideology. And again, like I said, I'm not, don't always, it's obvious, like some, you will obviously have your own morals, but your shadow self will show like a different mirror to those morals. And it, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means that obviously for a good reason, some certain things might have been conditioned out of you as they're out of most people. So aggression, a lot of aggression can be a part of your shadow self too. And so you'll often see a shadow self pop up in a lot of history, a lot of myths, a lot of religions. Like there's always like the bad guy, the villain. And you'll see it pop up in your dreams as well. And you might be very scared of your shadow self, but at the end of the day, it is sort of a part of you. But the tension between the self that you show in society and this shadow self is super interesting. That's like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A lot of books I've written about stuff like that. And so you can use that if you find certain things about your shadow self rather intriguing and you're sort of able to confront your shadow self a bit. You can take that plot point and put it in a short story. You can take that plot point and you can take that tension and put it in a poem. So again, this is the reason why that exists inside of you is because it is interesting to you. And so if you're able to channel it creatively, if you're able to put it on page in a different format, slightly different format, because I will say that if you just start writing your dreams as stories, you might feel rather vulnerable because you're showing a part of yourself that you're not sure you're supposed to show to other people. So I think it's okay to like have that library of dreams, sit with it a bit, and then look at symbols in a more analytical way. I think that can be an easier experience for people. Archetypes are often have like images and emotions, and they're often usually fascinating to us, right? So this could be a big difference between a sign and a symbol. Is the emotion that invokes, and again, symbols that we see that we feel are more. Even so, when you're looking at all the symbols that you see in your dream, you want to think about your own personal self. You want to think about the culture that surrounds it, then you want to think about archetypes. So personal symbols can sort of help you. You just look at everything that's sort of happening in your dreams. You look at, oh, there's always this like weird stone in my dreams. What is this? Why is there always a stone? And maybe the stone alchemizes something. Maybe it's the philosopher's stone or something. And you see that happen across history. And you see that happen across a lot of different mythologies that they go and look at the stone and something happens. And that can really help you understand how that symbol has been used across time, how you use that symbol, how that symbol has been used in the culture around you. So when you look at the culture around you, it's like your own history, your art, your literature. Um, why I think it's interesting to the more archetypal way is because like I mentioned, I grew up in a different country, and so when I look at the culture there and I look at the culture here, it's different, and so that really helps. That sort of comparative cross-cultural lens really helps me understand what is almost more universal in a way. Fairy tales actually, and it's like stuff we tell children because it has to be so simple, but also it's like almost terrifying. Like I'm talking about older fairy tales and folklore. you will realize it uses a lot of the same symbols, and those are easy. If you want to look at them, you gravitate towards a symbol. It can even be the moon, like it can be the moon archetype. It can be relationships with mothers, like the mother archetype. So all of these things that you can see how they have been defined across time, how and what sort of how you view them, how have you been introduced to them. So it's possible that you were living in the US and we have a lot of interest in um, Indonesian folklore, right? And so you also have that as a sort of cultural background because at this point you've been like really studying it and looking at it. So feel free to look at dreams more and the symbols in your dreams more widely. But again, don't just associate all day. Don't just make associations all day to the point where you sort of lost the dream image. If it feels right to you, it's probably correct. But I just want you to think about once you have a big library and you're like, what do I do with this? How do I actually use this? Think about this personal, cultural, and archetype typo. And this really helps you. Um, and yeah, if it clicks, it clicks. Don't amplify to the point where you're so far away from the dream images that it's become a purely rational or emotionless sort of endeavor. Um, we have one small, I think we can do this because I think let's do this till 4:50 for 3 minutes. But think about what symbols you have, the symbols you sort of gravitate towards in your writing, what evokes a special feeling inside of you. You can do like very basic symbols like shapes and animals, even people when it comes to relationships and sort of cultural symbols, like I said, like the cross can be a good one. And think about how like each symbol is explored differently by you or maybe and then maybe the people around you would view it differently. Like that's an activity you could do. And yeah, symbols can also inspire transformation. So usually a symbol would lead to something else happening in your dreams. It will also lead to something else happening in like a story. So I think we have, yeah, let's do till 4:52. How about that? Okay, I'll put the timer on. All right. So I do think symbols can be slightly less personal. So if people would want to unmute and share, now's the time. I think that'll be cool. It's always interesting for me.
Hi, this is Beth. Um, I thought more about a repetitive dream that I have, but a recurring object, if you will, or situation is tables of people in a restaurant waiting for food. And I'm the server, and I have to feed these people, and um, it's impossible for one reason or another. And there's lots of variations on that dream. And I've spent some time thinking about how that translates into my own life. I'm this is inspiring me to maybe incorporate this into my next essay.
Yeah, that's a powerful image. That's like a great image to start with, right? People waiting for you as you're a server at a restaurant. That's anxiety inducing for sure. Thank you for sharing. Now we have someone in the chat talking about triangles being a strong symbol. Yeah, sometimes going three at a time. That could be interesting. You could always have like a short story which has a bunch of acts that always end up with a triangle somehow. Always have three different things going on. Serpents. Oh yeah, the caves. Okay, yeah, serpents come in my dream along. Yeah, serpents are interesting. They're definitely, I think I have, if I move, I'll show you. This is the Kafka image. So this one is an old manuscript. It's from an old Indian manuscript that I found like on open access. And this is a serpent that the person said this happened in someone's dream. So yeah, we've always been dreaming of snakes. Probably, I think Carl Jung's The Man and His Symbols has some part of it where it says like it's because we were pretty much always surrounded by like these predators, right? And snake is just one of those predators that when it's gonna show up and like hurt you. Tidal waves. It's interesting. Yeah, the beach, the sea, mountains, valleys, land formations that change the dimensions of land. Yeah, that can be interesting. I get the moon a lot, and I realize so if you once you start working on this like dream library, you will realize the associations you have. But I realized after I saw the moon a lot in my dreams that I had written about the moon as like a symbol of transformation a lot in my actual short stories. And like I enjoy like I mean this straightforward example is like werewolves, right? I like reading about werewolves and there's always a moon. You'll see it all like connect. It's super cool when you see that happen. And I think like once you use your symbols sort of more intentionally in your writing, in dreams, like I think it'll really help you figure that out. It can be a rewarding experience. Because like I said, your dreams will show you what's interesting to you. And I think it can like help clarify your like artistic vision a bit. Because sometimes it's like I'm just writing I don't even know what I'm writing until I've written it. So that can be interesting. Any questions, any last comments, thoughts people have? Okay, I hope this was interesting. Um, Julian, do you want to go ahead?
Sure thing. Thank you so much, Ravneet. I really enjoyed that. I know everyone else did too. I'm going to share those links I shared at the beginning one more time. At the top, you got that feedback survey, so you can let us know what you thought of the session. Let us know what you want to see from us in the future. A link to our fall classes. We've got, I think, maybe 4 more still open for registration. Some short, some a little bit longer, all good stuff. And there's financial aid, there's payment plans. We even have a handful of full scholarships. So we're trying really hard to make cost not a barrier if you'd like to join those classes. We also, if you're a teacher, we are also taking proposals right now for 2026 classes. We're doing one call for proposals for the entire year. So this is your chance to put your name in the hat. Well, if you're not ready to teach a full-on class, but you're kind of curious about teaching, you could lead a session like this one. Down at the bottom of the same page, I'll put a link there for in the chat in a second, bluestoop.org/teach. Down at the bottom of that page, there is a rolling call for proposals for Thursdays on the Stoop. That is where you are now. If you have an idea for an hour-long workshop, it pays, it's worth checking out. There's also a link for that weekly newsletter. And next week we have a Thursdays on the Stoop session called Be Like Water with Sarah Davis, also free and on Zoom, Thursdays from 4 to 5 East Coast time. We'd love to see you there. And last but not least, this is a free session. It's for the community. If you're in a place in your life where you have a few extra bucks, you want to help support Blue Stoop, help us keep this free and available to everyone, you can pitch in at bluestoop.org/donate. Thank you again for being here. I'll put the recording online and email you that survey link one more time and with a link to the recording. Thanks again, everyone. Ravneet, appreciate you, and we will see you all on the Stoop.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.